Okay, so it is time for a midsummer farm tour. That's up next. Hey everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today. It is the end of August 2019. So we're here in Arizona. As you guys know, we've had multiple 115-degree days for the last few weeks, and we figured, you know what, now's the perfect time to give you an idea of what the farm looks like really at its worst. So we're gonna go through a few different areas of the farm today and cover a few different trees, see what's doing well and what's doing not so good. So let's start off with our grapevine garden area. Okay, so we're gonna start off right here. You'll see we have our grapevines behind us here with our garden beds, but before we head that way, if Lori wants to pan over this way, you're gonna see a dead moringa stump and you're gonna see a nectarine tree. That nectarine tree is doing fantastic. We got that from Stark Bros. They're an online nursery. They sell a lot of different things there. We bought a few things from them and actually had very, very good luck with their trees, and this is definitely one of them. We have not gotten any fruit off of it, but I'll tell you what, looking at the way this tree is performing, you know, we've got some different soil and stuff going on the bottom. I've got some ideas going on in the new farm. Just a beautiful, beautiful looking tree. If you continue to look over, you'll see our blackjack fig. It's doing really, really well. Staying nice and small. We've talked about that before. Would be a very, very good fig variety, I think, for a nice big pot if you wanted to do that. Some roses in the back, and our bay leaf tree is back in that corner as well. The bay leaf tree putting on new growth, just looking fantastic. So just a great looking tree, and of course it's bay leaves. We love bay leaves. So as we continue to move over, you're gonna see our grapevines. And again, remember, this is as rough as these ever look. Everything really has a tendency to kind of struggle during the summertime. Grapevines definitely do that as well. However, they're pushing through. Got some nice new growth on there. Obviously have some yellowing and leaves and some dying leaves, which is okay. Nothing wrong with that. As we continue to go around the front, you'll see our Manuka grapes doing great. And then we got a couple different varieties that go over our arbor, which we've talked about before. And they're doing fantastic. In fact, we probably need to get to pruning so we can actually walk through that bad boy. But you know, let's go ahead and take a look at the garden beds, which are empty at this point. Okay, so here we are inside our vineyard and our garden beds. So garden beds, not much to talk about here. They're empty. We're gonna let these go ahead and go fallow. We'll let the new owners decide what they wanna do there. But you'll see that we have our potted kumquat trees are doing really, really well during the summer. Now we have those strategically placed behind the grapevines here because that would be the western sky. So we don't want that western sun pounding on these things. By about 1 in the afternoon, they're completely in the shade. So they're doing really, really well. Another thing, a quick update on, would be our potted apple tree. So this is our potted golden Dorset. Now again, this is as rough as it gets for trees like this. Now this tree, as we've talked about before, is in the middle of nothing. So it's in a cement pot, so it's nice and warm in there, toasting those roots. However, we've got new growth coming in through the middle of the tree. I think I even see some flowering on that tree. So we water that tree about 3 days a week, so about every other day. I think we water it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we give it a nice deep saturating soak. Looks like I need to get some more wood chips in there, but here we are in the middle of summer. Golden Dorset apple tree in a cement pot in the middle of the sun. Sun's on that thing all day long, and it's pushing through. Okay, so we're gonna be walking back into the primary orchard here, and I'm kind of flanked by trees, but we got a couple of peach trees we'll peek at here on the outside. So we've got a Saturn donut peach here. Didn't get any ripe fruit off of that this year. We have our tropic snow peach right there, and then next to that you'll see our piacatum, our flavor grenade pluot, a nectaplum as Lori continues to go down. You'll see our pluary, which is the tallest tree out front here. That tree's doing fantastic. Next to our burgundy plum, a couple of our other apple varieties, our red Fuji, our Honeycrisp. As you go down that line, we got a few more apple trees. One of them's really, really struggling here in the summertime, but keeping my fingers crossed, she's gonna come back okay here in the fall. Really get a good idea of mulch on the ground and thorough watering. We do use drip irrigation, and these trees are pushing through that summer fantastically. As you look back behind me here, you're gonna see one of our pear trees. This is a Seckel pear tree. So we got Seckel pears here. As you look back into there, you're gonna continue to see our pomegranates. We've talked about that before. Goji berry, that goji berry, that's what it's supposed to look like during the summertime. It has a tendency to struggle just a smidge. and then that stump in the middle, that would be what's left over of our Barbados cherry. It's still got a little tiny bit of green, but like any other tropical tree for us out here, no bueno. As we continue to go back this way, you'll see we've got our fig trees back here. We've talked about those multiple times. Those are our brown turkey figs. At this point in the summer, there's a few green figs on there, but for the most part, there's really not much in the way of figs. That will continue to push new growth going into the fall. We'll get a whole new set of fruit on there. As you continue to look in the back, you'll see we have our Shinseki pear back there. We got 2 pieces of fruit on there that we covered with organza bags, and I think we're about ripe on those fruit. So Lori and I are gonna probably try those out here in the next week or so. Behind me here, we haven't actually talked about this particular tree before. This is actually a Fuyu persimmon tree. So the tree itself is actually doing very well. It doesn't look like it because it's got these weird pom-pom looking leaf bunches on it, but this is how these grow. Now this did get a fantastic fruit set on it here this spring. However, every single fruit has been eaten by birds. So not too sure whether or not we're gonna bring this one with us, but it's kind of an interesting, cool looking tree. It does really well here, and it does set fruit, so a challenge for us. Lori wants to continue to look down that way. I think this is one of the coolest views of the property, except for maybe the view the other direction, but you can see the growth that we get with all of our fruit trees in this part of the orchard. So we've got 2 rows. The row that you see on the right-hand side would be one of our oldest sets of trees, so these trees are all about 4 years old. On the left-hand side, those are about 2.5 years old. The left-hand side, those are all bare root trees that we planted 2.5 years ago from Greg Peterson, and you know what? They are outperforming the trees on the right-hand side, which I believe all of them were potted trees. But a cool, really cool look looking down through the orchard that way. Continuing around the orchard here, you're gonna see some temporary housing for our chickens until we get onto the new property. But we've got our 20th century Asian pear. I'll tell you what, that tree for the first couple summers really struggled through the summer. However, now that it's putting those roots down and out, check that tree out. Just beautiful green, dark green leaves. Just a beautiful, beautiful tree. I really like the way it's shaped. It's really kind of unique. It's kind of got that really narrow vase kind of look, but looks great. Composting, nothing too exciting. We are still composting even in the middle of summer, but that's winding down because we're heading over to the new property. As we continue down actually our original orchard row, you get an idea of what the trees look like just looking back down there. Now what you see here, this is actually one of our chicken tractors. We use that for our broiler chickens during the wintertime. However, until we get onto the new property, we're actually keeping all of our laying hens in there. So we've got 22 or 23 laying hens. By the way, we've never lost one during the summer. One of these days we'll show you how. But we keep them here in the orchard rows, so they do get a little bit of shade during the day, but they're doing fantastic. And then of course trees. So we got our apium tree here. We have an apricot tree here that we haven't talked about before. As we continue to walk down, you'll see all of our peaches. Again, dog days of summer, you can see our peach trees. They're just hanging in there, but you can see a lot of good new growth there on the tip, which of course is going to be our fruiting wood as we get back into next year in the spring. There's our Florida Prince peach. Our desert gold peach that we forgot to prune, forgot to thin. We really kind of let this guy down. He's a little droopy right now, but still hanging in there. You'll see our almond tree here. We talked about our all-in-one almond. We've actually got a Pluot variety there we haven't talked about before. That's our Dapple Dandy Pluot. We have yet to get ripe fruit off of that tree. The tree itself has done fantastic, and you can see it's growing really well. But you know, production is what we're all about here with our fruit trees, and that's been a challenge. So this shot I wanted to get for you guys because we talk a lot about cross-pollination, and I haven't really kind of shown you all of our plums and pluots. So to yours right there, as Lori goes and pans, you'll see we got our Dapple Dandy Pluot here, okay? Next to that, we're gonna have our Santa Rosa Plum, which would be the cross-pollination between these two trees. As we continue around, you're gonna see our Flavor Finale Pluot here, again, another Pluot variety that needs cross-pollination. Behind it is our Pluary and our Burgundy Plum, again, cross-pollination. Nectaplum is gonna be right there. We haven't talked about that before. The tree struggled its first year, but it's doing great now. And then as we continue to go around, you'll see our Flavor Grenade Pluot and our Piacatum. So all of these trees that are right in through here give you a great view of cross-pollination. All of these are great cross-pollinators. So we've got them all together in here. You can see they're actually doing fantastic here in this summer heat. As we move further back here into the orchard, you're going to see around me are apples. We've talked about apples so much. You know, I'll tell you what, this is our golden Dorset apple tree, which is kind of our prized tree at this point. This tree we got from Reed at RSI Growers. He has his own rootstocks. Guys, I'm telling you, I am a big believer now in rootstocks after going through the process on this farm. This tree is by far our most impressive tree. It's just a nice, wide, beautiful tree, nice and tall. It grows so aggressively. It's putting on new, strong growth here in the middle of summer, strong growth back at the tips. It's filling in my open center, just a beautiful, beautiful tree. Now, as we continue to go, you'll see more apple trees. We've talked about all these different varieties actually at this point, but we got our fall apples that are all together. Again, cross-pollination. You'll see the Gala apple here, which is the cross-pollinator for the other trees around it, which are all fall apple varieties. They all basically flower and set at the same time. Pink lady apple there, our tropic sweet apple as we continue to go further down, and then of course still my favorite mulberry tree, our Shangri-La mulberry. One thing I do want to say about that Shangri-La, last year at this point and for the first 2 years, that tree had almost completely defoliated at this point. However, right now looking at that tree, it's got some green tips on it. So now that it's actually established, I'm looking at new green leaves, a little scraggly at the top where that sun's really beating down on it, but overall, man, that tree just looks amazing. Again, back to our apples, we've got our Anna apple here doing really, really well. We've got a couple trees that are struggling. This is our Trevita orange, so our Arizona sweet orange. This tree has continued to struggle for us. I know when we were talking about fruit thinning, I was talking a little bit about rootstocks. Really not too confident in the ability for those citron rootstocks to do well here in Arizona. It's still alive, it's still got some new growth on it, but it continues to struggle. Okay, so as we come back to the end of the orchard here, you're going to see where we have all of our citrus. So again, for the most part, all of our citrus just doing fantastic. We did come through and thin last week, so we've got the thinning done. The trees themselves look really, really well. We do have our primary chicken coop here. So that chicken coop we got from Tractor Supply, it's doing fantastic. It does really, really well. Right now we're only keeping, I believe it's 4 or 5 Americana hens in there, and they do fine in that space. The rest of our citrus, just beautiful looking trees, a little bit of browning on the tips, but for the most part, look fantastic. As we continue through the citrus area, Lori pans this way, you'll see what we've done with our mandarin trees. Definitely going to copy this and do something similar on the new property, but we have them kind of clumped together. These are more dwarf / semi-dwarfing trees, so to keep them in here in kind of a forest look, I really like the way it looks. Does a fantastic job of helping to keep these things from getting too much sun damage, which they definitely can do, but several different varieties in here. I think we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 varieties in here. One thing that we haven't talked about before is that guy right there. I believe that's a Satsuma mandarin that we got from Costco. Talked briefly about the fact that our Costco trees, we've had a couple, have not done well. Again, I think back to those rootstocks, not really designed for our area. So as we continue around, what you see behind me there is our Yehuda loquat. So now one of the things we do here, we do not nurse our trees along. So if they can't survive in the full summer sun, they get the boot. Now that tree has done fantastic. For the most part, we leave it alone. I don't prune it really at all. We've done a couple air layerings off it that for the most part failed, but the tree itself, you can see, is pushing out new growth and actually looks really, really good. Our pomelo trees right here, this thing had almost completely died back during the winter, but has come back really, really strong. I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna go with that variety on the new farm just because of how much it struggled in the wintertime, but overall it's looking pretty good. For those of you who follow us with our pig escapades, that was our pig pen. So now one of the things we designed into that pig pen was the fact that it was temporary. As we were moving and we've got people that will be buying this property, we wanted to allow them to do whatever they wanted to there. We haven't kept any cover crops over it, which we probably could have, to continue to keep some of the wonderful soil amendments that those pigs put down for us. However, that's kind of open for them to decide what they want to do. Middle of summer, our blackberry bushes do have a tendency to struggle just a little bit. Now there is some new growth. So we got new growth here on this one on the end. I'm seeing the Primark doing pretty well, dropping some of the last year's canes that we have to come back and prune out. But for the most part, they're all hanging in there. And most of them, in fact, this one on the end gets full blazing sun all day long. And you know what? It's doing better than the others. So before we get too much further, there's another tree here that we haven't talked about. This is actually a quince tree. So we bought this quince tree, I believe it was Rain Tree Nurseries. It's an online nursery. And we actually transplanted this. We showed you a transplant of this tree. It has come back really, really strong this year. Got some new growth on it right now, which is very encouraging to see here in the middle of summer. Very vertically growing tree, but kind of a cool variety. I think we may still bring that one over with us. So as we continue to come back down through the orchard, this is actually where we started, so you're getting a different view. You'll see some of our younger apple trees here. We've talked already about our Pluaries and Pluots and that kind of thing as we move down. As Lori pans that way, you'll see our pasture. We do let our pasture go completely dormant during the summertime. I do not have any interest whatsoever in mowing Bermuda grass. So we just keep it with the perennial rye that comes right back once we hit October and it cools back down. So let that settle for the summer. But again, I think just a wonderful view. As I look down here, especially as you get further into here, you're just surrounded by green. So as we walk down, I'll tell you what, you don't feel like you're in Arizona. Behind me, you're going to see really our most impressive looking trees. These are our two mulberry trees. So we've got our white Pakistan mulberry there, which I don't think is a Pakistan mulberry, but either way, white mulberry there and a black mulberry here. The black mulberry is about a year younger than the white mulberry, but beautiful, beautiful shade trees. They give an amazing amount of fruit production, really just beautiful trees. So here we are actually at our nursery. So these are all of the trees that we're taking with us. For the most part, I would say we probably have about a 50 to 60% success rate, because a lot of this is actually air layering. We have a few different varieties of mulberry in there, a couple different figs in there. You guys actually saw us take this tree out of the ground. It's really the only tree that we plan on pulling up out of the ground and taking it with us. That's our honey mandarin tree. So you can see it's the middle of summer. It's struggling a little bit with some droopy leaves, but it is still alive. Not worried about that tree. We've got it protected underneath the white mulberry here. But overall, these are the trees we're going to be bringing with us to the new property. So we've already got plans for these guys. Back to a couple things we haven't talked about before. What you see behind me here, these are actually pineapple guava. So that is actually not a true guava. However, it does a fantastic job here in Arizona. Now, what's funny about these two trees, we bought these from Walmart, and Walmart did not have them listed as fruit trees. So they were just shrubs. I think we got these for like 10 bucks each. So super, super cheap. But you know what? These guys here at about 2.5 years old have something I was shocked to see. Here we are in the middle of summer, and right here, guys, that is a pineapple guava. So we actually had a fruit set on here. This thing had some amazing flowers on there, which were edible. We did eat several, but we have a handful of fruit that are just hanging on there, even on these little bushes that are about 2.5 years old. I got another one down here. I know I saw another one on that side. Got nice new growth here on the tips. So these bushes are doing really, really well. So behind me here, this would be another couple of trees we have not talked about before. This is the Royal Lee and the Mini Royal cherry trees. I believe that's the two varieties. These two are required for cross-pollination, low chill varieties, etc., etc. We do have them double planted. This tree is actually transplanted from another area in the yard, and this tree is about a year younger. Now these trees, this one here is about 2.5 years old. This one here is about a year and a half. You can see this tree is really struggling. Does have some new growth on there. However, we had to replace this tree. We had this one once before, and it did essentially what we're seeing again, which is really struggled during the summertime. So now these two varieties, because of the trees really having a tendency to struggle, I'm not too sure we're going to give these a shot on the new property. We've got a few trees that we're actually trying to kind of do more of like an espalier style as far as the plantings up here against this wall. So now this wall is our western wall, so it gets eastern sun, but then it gets some shade in the evening, at least on the trunks. So this is our Peter's Honey Fig. We've done a video on this before. Haven't been all that impressed so far with the production off this tree. I think we need to look at some different ways of pruning it to try to keep the size down a little bit. But overall, fruit quality has definitely not been, we'll say, acceptable. However, we do have a start that we're going to bring with us. We're still going to give this one a try. Okay, so as we continue to move down this western wall, this would be another Florida Prince peach tree doing fantastic. This tree, again, about 2.5 years old at this point, doing really, really well. Another tree back here that we have not gotten any fruit off of yet, but a very impressive tree, that is a Sherwood jujube. So definitely a tree that we will be bringing with us or putting into the new property. This tree I basically cut in half. It grew almost that tall last year at 2.5 years old. This thing is dwarfing me, so I'm just under 6 feet. This thing's more than 12 feet tall. So just a beautiful, beautiful tree. This thing pushes through summer sun like nobody's business. So it looks really well. And then as we go back into the corner, this tree we've talked about as well. This tree right here would be our ever-bearing mulberry tree. So that tree has been fantastic. We've got it pushed back here in the corner. We had a 13-foot trampoline get blown from our neighbor's yard during a microburst, landed on top of that thing, basically broke it in half, and it's right back to where it was before then. So just a wonderful, wonderful tree. We had great success actually air layering that tree. I think we have 4 out of the 5 air layers took. So we're thinking strongly about using this as a windbreak / privacy hedge on the new property. But a very impressive, very, very impressive bush / tree. Last thing is actually a quick update for you guys. One of the first videos we did just under 2 years ago was actually putting these trees into the ground. So all 3 of these trees are apple varieties that we purchased from Reed at RSI Growers. And this was really a test because these trees are right up against our wall. This wall faces the west. So you can see already these trees have not been in the sun yet, much to speak of here in the middle of summer. So what these trees get full, blazing, heavy midday sun, and that's basically it. They really don't get much of anything else. So we don't do anything different. All the watering's the same. We need to get back and get some wood chips back up in here because our curve bill thrashers have totally torn all of our wood chips out. But you can get us an idea of how these trees are growing in very partial sun. So they're actually doing pretty well. This is a golden Dorset here. So it's doing its normal golden Dorset self, which is spreading everywhere. We've got our Anna apple there with a few suckers that I need to cut out of there. But you can see it's doing really well. And then further back, you'll see a tropic sweet. All of these trees are about 2 years old. Again, all they get is partial sun in the middle of the day, and overall they actually look really, really good. And then of course what you see behind us there in the back are a couple of IBC totes and some 50-gallon containers that we're going to be taking onto the new property because of course at the new property we will be doing rain catchment. Okay, so that's just a good wrap up of the primary farm itself and where we stand here at the end of August. It is getting hot. I think we're at about 9:30 in the morning. It's over 100 degrees, so it's really, really hot. Get a really good view, a good kind of overview of the primary orchard and how it looks here. For the most part, with 1 or 2 exceptions, just chugging right through that summer heat. So wanted to give you guys an update. One of our last ones actually, before we move on to the new property, but just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what the farm looks like really at its worst. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon page, I'll leave a link down in the description. That is a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. It is the middle of August 2019. It's actually the end of August 2019. Do over.